Hey, welcome back. Tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at weather for the next 8 to 10 days. Today, it'll take us to the middle of January, to around the 15th of the month. We're also going to have a look at the chance of some colder conditions coming through in the second half of the month as well. And we'll have a look at the chance of some stormy conditions on Friday and Saturday for the northern part of the country in particular. So quite a lot going on. Before we get on with the update, though, I just want to say about the ads. There's links to articles, most pages at GasWeatherBusiness.com. Have a browse through widgets. Any articles that you're interested in, just click through. There's green keyboard ads on some of the pages. If you right, go so over green keywords, they display ads. If you click through your word, go to advertise website, you support GasWeatherBusiness.com when you do that. And there's yellow contextual weather related ads on most pages as well. So click through those and if there's anything there that you're interested in. All these things are essentially paying for the website. So thanks so much for getting involved. Thanks for doing that. I want to start off with the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation first of all, just to very quickly say what the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations are. They're indexes that are reflecting or telling us the state of the atmosphere over the Arctic in terms of the Arctic Oscillation and over the North Atlantic in terms of the North Atlantic Oscillation. They're not driving anything, they're not drivers of the weather, they are indexes that reflect the state of the atmosphere. So we'll start off with the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart first of all. The black line here on this graph tells us where the Arctic Oscillation has been going back to September. The red lines at the end are where the Arctic Oscillation is forecast to go as we move through into January. So we can see that the black line here has gone very positive recently. So we've developed quite a lot of low pressure over the top of the pole, and that basically takes us through the next few days. We're going to get a little bit of a dip in the coming couple of days, but then we're going to go very positive with the Arctic Oscillation again as we run up through the second week of the month. After that, though, many of these red lines are going down, they're dipping down. Now, they're not exactly tanking, they're not going through the floor, but there's certainly the idea there that as we run up towards the middle of January, this is the 16th just here, as we're running up to the middle of the month, the Arctic Oscillation is going a great deal more negative than it is at the moment. And when the Arctic Oscillation is negative, it's telling us really that we're getting blocking appearing over the top of the pole. So that's why this is an important index. When the Arctic Oscillation goes negative, it's reflecting the fact that that there is blocking beginning to appear over the pole. So this is telling us that we've got a chance of some high pressure building over top of the pole and possibly around Greenland as we go through to the middle of the month. And that's what we was looking at yesterday. Yesterday's video I did the update saying that the GFS and CFS products up were both seeing the chance of colder weather in the second half of January, with blocking over the North Pole. This Arctic Oscillation chart appears to sort of tie in with that. Although I say the red lines are not absolutely tanking, so it's a little way off, but there's definitely the signal there that something is beginning to happen around middle of the month over the pole. Now, the North Atlantic Oscillation is the same idea. It's a reflection, it's an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the North Atlantic rather than over the top of the pole. When it's positive, when the North Atlantic Oscillation is positive, we've got low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores. And when it's negative, we've got high pressure around Iceland and low pressure through the Azores. So you're allowing, in that setup, you're allowing colder weather to come down from the North Pole. So to get it cold, generally we're looking at a negative Arctic Oscillation and a negative North Atlantic Oscillation. Now, we're going to go very positive with the North Atlantic Oscillation over the next few days. We're going to be in for a stormy spell later this week with strong westerlies. And then we are seeing a bit of a dip down as we go through into the middle of the month. Again, this is the 16th of January, just here. The red lines are dipping down. But not as much as the Arctic Oscillation. So there's not really a signal here yet that we're going negative with the North Atlantic Oscillation. Whilst the Arctic Oscillation may go negative around the middle of the month, the North Atlantic Oscillation may not go negative. And that means that the Atlantic Ocean may not get itself into a position to help bring down the cold air that we have with the blocking over the Arctic. So that could be a problem. If you want it to turn cold in the second half of the month, really you're going to want, for a sustained cold pattern anyway, you are going to want the Arctic and the North Atlantic Oscillations both to be going negative together. If you've got one negative and one not as negative, or staying positive in the case of North Atlantic Oscillation forecast chart here, then you could get a fight with the Arctic and the North Atlantic sort of fighting against one another. So that could be a problem if we want to turn it cold. We'll be keeping an eye on these over the next few days. But North Atlantic is not in a great setup this winter for cold weather. I explained this when I did my winter forecast at the very start of December, that the North Atlantic is not in a great position this year to be going negative and to be bringing that cold weather. So that could be a bit of a problem. Anyway, let's have a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly charts. We've got the ECMWF here on the left, the GFS is over on the right. These are the 500 millibar charts for the next 8 to 10 days, so this takes up around the middle of January. Blue is extrapolating to low pressure, orange is extrapolating to high pressure. So we're indicating on both the models that we've got a deep trough of low pressure to the north of the country. We've got a ridge stretched out through the central part of the Atlantic around the Azores just there. And the tight lines on both of these charts are indicating a very strong jet stream running through the Atlantic and going on into Europe. So this is a continuation of a pattern really that we've had through most of the winter so far, which has been generally quite mild other than cold snap over Christmas. Yeah, we've got strong westerlies coming through with low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south. Not a great deal of signs there that we're going to be turning it colder, but of course the chance of turning it cold is after middle of the month. This only goes up to the 15th, but up to that point, not a great deal of evidence on those charts that we're getting into a pattern that is going to be turning it colder. If we have a look at the temperature anomaly for the coming week, this takes us from the 5th to the 13th of January. We can see that we're going to be on the milder side of average, so generally quite a mild week coming up. It could turn very mild down in the south for a time, Friday, Saturday, but I think overall it's not going to be as mild as that. That's just a brief window of very mild or maybe exceptionally mild conditions overnight Friday in Saturday, but generally temperature anomalies are coming out around a degree to a couple of degrees above average. As is most of Europe, it's a very mild scene across many parts of Europe during the coming week. Although the east of Europe for a few days around the middle of the week can have a very cold spell. If you want to know more about that, have a look at the European outlook. But the anomaly for the week anyway is not particularly cold. It's turned very cold though in America. This is the temperature anomaly for the 5th to 13th of January for the United States. Really, really cold again. Central eastern parts of the states, warmer out in the west. So they're getting a cold plunge again in the states over the coming week. The rainfall anomaly, precipitation anomaly for the 5th to 13th of January is coming out average to a little bit wetter than average. It's going to be quite an unsettled week, particularly in the north and the west. Now, we could get a storm on Friday morning across northern Scotland. This little area of low pressure here could bring some very severe gales to the north of Scotland. We want to keep an eye. It's going to be generally a windy spell coming up later on this week and into weekend everywhere, but the worst bit I think is going to be for the far north of Scotland. A real battering is possible up there, and then as we run through into Saturday we could do it all over again, although this area of low pressure is a little bit further north, so the worst of the winds with that one is actually just to the north of Scotland, maybe battering the Northern Isles rather than the mainland of Scotland. But both Friday and Saturday mornings could be very, very windy up in the far north, and generally, as I said, it's going to be a windy scene across many parts of the country later this week and into the weekend. Will be very mild down in the south overnight Friday into Saturday. May even break records in terms of those minimum temperatures first thing on Saturday morning, but then it'll be one of those days where it cools off through the course of Saturday itself. Going through into sunny, that low pressure goes off into Scandinavia and we build a little bit of a transient, reasonably colder day on Sunday with chilly northwesterly winds possibly bringing wintry showers into the north and west of Scotland. Start of next week we bring the next area of low pressure through, so it turns wet and windy again for the start of next week, particularly in the north and the west of the country. Going through to Tuesday the 13th, we're in that flat westerly flow still. Thursday the 15th, this is around the time period, daytime, where we could start to see that change towards colder conditions. Notice that the colours, the purple colours, are easing off across Scotland So worst of the low pressure and the worst of cold temperatures are going from Greenland as we start to bring down this northwesterly wind. We get through towards Friday the 16th. We're building a bit of a ridge through the Atlantic. So yeah, it's beginning to turn cooler through that period. It isn't cold yet by Friday the 16th, but it is starting to turn cooler and we're starting to lose those deep storms. And then the high pressure comes in from the west, brings the winds into the north, so it does turn colder. But what this run of the GFS wants to do, the latest run, is just build the high pressure in over country. It doesn't hook it up to any sort of northern blocking to the north, and that could be the problem where you've got the Arctic oscillation going negative, the North Atlantic oscillation staying positive. What tends to happen is that you finish up with sort of a high pressure just sitting over the top of northern and western Europe, and that's what the GFS 6 run is saying today. That's cold under that area of high pressure, but it's not a proper blocked cold pattern, bringing bitterly cold air and snow in from the north. Eventually, the GFS takes that high pressure to Scandinavia and begins to pull the winds in from the east, but that's a very, very long way off and very highly speculative that the high pressure would go there. The parallel run of the GFS, again, we have that flat westerly flow coming through to start next week. This is Tuesday the 13th. We go through towards day 10, Thursday the 15th, and that low pressure is still around the north and west of the country, though getting a bit of a ridge building through the Atlantic going up towards Greenland. We get through into Friday the 16th and we're opening the door to a cold northerly plunge then. So there's still that idea here that later on, just after the middle of the month, we could bring down this cold northerly wind, and then the high pressure topples in over country again as we go through to Saturday the 17th. And we finish up on Monday the 19th in this sort of a position with the high pressure sitting generally over and to the east of the country, these weather systems trying to come in from the west. Again, this is reflecting the fact that whilst the Arctic oscillation is negative, the North Atlantic oscillation is positive, so they're fighting against one another, and we're just finishing up with high pressure around the country as opposed to getting into a proper blocked cold pattern. Nevertheless, this is colder for the second half of the month. And will be very frosty. The ECMWF and GEM, this is the GEM chart for day 10, Thursday the 15th. We're still bringing those westerly flow through, still no real sign of anything particularly cold appearing at that point. And we go through to the ECMWF day 10 chart, and again we've got the low pressure still up to the north and the west. So they are sort of not reflecting the chance of colder conditions for the second half of the month, but it's still just beyond that period. It's around the 16th, 17th that we would be looking to bring down those northerly winds. So it's still pretty undecided about what's happening with this chance of colder weather. The GFS is seeing it could turn colder, but it's not as dramatic as was the case yesterday on yesterday's update. Nevertheless, I think something is still going to happen in the second half of the month. I think it will turn colder. It may just be a very frosty cold spell with high pressure sitting over country as opposed to really bitterly cold, opening the floodgates to northerly and easterly winds. But it's a long way off all this. We're talking about ultra long range periods really. So let's wait and see what happens in the shorter term. Again, we've got to be watching out for risk of significant winds across the north of the country on Friday and on Saturday. That's all for now. Thanks for watching the update. Bye for now.